Good morning, Vikings fans. This is Morning Joe's, and I'm your host, Joe VIP Johnson, here with Mr. Joe Oberly. I own the websites purpleptsd.com, vikingsterritory.com, and purpleterritoryradio.com.
I don't get any initials, or I don't get anything. You're just here with me. Fine. I know how this rolls now. You're VIP. Whatever, dude.
The people like me who get to go down on the field are too busy running the world to come up with nicknames for everybody. I mean,
AOG, awesome OG. Come on.
Oh, I'll take that. The
All
OG.
Right.
Yeah, we got to bring that. We got to bring that back.
Damn right.
Joe is the editor of Purple PTSD and Vikings Territory. He and I were both at the game on Sunday.
Yeah, you were down on the field while I'm up with the unwashed masses, and to be very blunt about it, the unwashed masses could use a shower. Okay. You know.
I know they're called unwashed masses, but I picked up on that as well, especially from like the guy that was dressed like Thor. He left an impression on me, and it wasn't magic. But yeah, this show, Morning Joe's, is brought to you by Ticket Club. If you're looking for fee-free tickets, go to purpleptsd.com, click on the banner for Ticket Club, enter the discount code SKOLPTSD, and you'll get a free year-long membership there. Also, if you are looking for any cool autographed Vikings memorabilia exclusive stuff, go to either Vikings Territory or Purple PTSD, click on the memorabilia page, and enter the discount code Purple PTSD for 30% off some of the cool stuff you can find. Also, we are now a part of the Big Heads media network. So either starting this week or next week, we have a lot of shows to bring over, so there's just a lot of work to be done. We will be available there on their entire network, and if you're listening to this in the ways that you're used to listening to it, that won't change either, so don't worry about that. But yeah, it was a how did we describe it last week, Joe? Not a must-win, or how did you do? I think you did, not a must-win, but like a must-rebound type game.
Yeah, they had to have it, just because you can't lose your games at home with the tough schedule they have for the road. They lost the previous week in a winnable game. They had won in Green Bay, and they're third place in the NFC North, so they got to win at home, and they needed to play better than they did for that first quarter in Green Bay and Cousins himself. So I think they came out and showed that that's exactly what they did.
Definitely, and I don't know how to feel about it. You know, it was very it was the first game that regular season game that I'd been to at US Bank Stadium, which was very exciting for me. And if you were following my live tweets, apparently the guy sitting right in front of me, a little to the right, because man, did I get put next to the fan from hell. Ugh. I have the worst luck with that sort of thing, which I think is most people experience that. But when you're at the game, you have this like high of being there, and you being amongst the people, and it's so fun. And as you guys know, and Joe knows, I have a tendency to look at things from the worst possible angle, especially after time. The longer the amount of time, the more negative I'll probably end up being about something. And so, I didn't really know how to feel about it, about the win. It was more of like they beat the Raiders, but they should have beat the Raiders.
Absolutely.
But I think in and of that in and of itself is important, that they did do that, I guess. As stupid as that sounds. I had said at some point, maybe not on this show, it could have been on the radio because I'm fancy, or it could have been in an article, or all three, that this might have been the most pressure Cousins was under to perform than I think he's had since he came here. Maybe to start the season last year was big, but I really felt like if he were to come out and replicate the performance or lack thereof that he had against Green Bay, that we would have had major. I mean, it would have been a nightmare, even more so than it already would have. And I'm sure he blocks a lot of that stuff out. But I mean, I was really heartened by his and they didn't use him a lot, but I think he performed well considering.
It was interesting that the fans were just ready to boo him. There's no two ways about it, and they did.
Yeah.
First play from scrimmage, he trips. I don't know who he tripped on, but he tripped taking the ball away from center, fell down, and gave himself up. And the fans just jumped on him, at least where I was sitting. And it was they were there. But I said in my post game story that they had to sit on those boos by the end of the drive because he threw that incredible pass to Thielen for the touchdown. I mean, he went out play action left. He was wide open. He was out by himself for quite a while, and he had to wait for Thielen to get open, turn, set himself, and to make a good throw back to the right, which is not an easy play. And
I was going to say that's a harder throw than I think people realize.
Absolutely, and he saw the whole time this guy, who I don't know who it was, coming over just ready to drill him. He had to hang on through it, hit Thielen in stride, and just got drilled. I said that was a great play, and so the fans then had to grudgingly stop booing him because that's what you want out of him. That's what you want him to do, and that's what he did. They like we were saying, it was important that they came out and did what they did. That the defense was cranked up. I mean, 3 and out. They shut him down for the entire game. The running game was once again great. Cousins didn't have to win the world. But by the same token, he made a number of really good plays, and he looked back to who he is. Did he make some mistakes? Yes, he overthrew some players. He had 2 block passes, which I noted. I wondered, do we have to start worrying about his vision? Because he overthrew, or he missed a wide open Stephon Diggs breaking free. He didn't even look to the left where he was double covered, but he was gone, and all he had to do was turn back to his left and throw downfield, but he threw across field to somebody else, and so I'm saying, what's he seeing out there? But it's a different vantage point from where I'm sitting, up in the stands.
And didn't he have a lot of batted balls last year?
Yep,
if I remember correctly, that was like
it was a thing,
a historic amount, at least for the Vikings. But I do think my fear. And a lot of people, especially at McDonald's liquor store where I am a couple nights a week, I let it out that I do a lot of Viking stuff and actually, real quick plug, Chad Greenway will be in McDonald's liquor store either Friday the 4th or the 11th of October to do a bottle signing for Grey Duck Vodka. Grey Duck is a sponsor of our website, so stay tuned for information on that. I'm still trying to get a hold of him to see which day works, but it's free and it'll be fun, and hopefully there'll be some Mankato Brewery stuff there too if we ever hear back from Chad on the date. But a lot of people were asking me. Sadly, a lot of older men come in and ask me for betting purposes what my opinion is, which if they've ever listened to the show, they know I'm horrible at predicting the score, even though I was like almost dead on for most of the game till that second garbage touchdown. That was more exciting to me than the actual score of the game. And I basically said I didn't really know what to expect. Score-wise, I didn't know what was going to happen. I felt like, and I wrote my score prediction before the game, basically in 2 ways, like the emotional thought of it, or the rational thought. Like the score that I gave last week, which was kind of, I think I said the Raiders were going to score 6 points, and you were like, wow, and I'm like, well, I need them to do that, though, like emotionally, to carry on. That's what I need this team to do. Rationally, I have zero idea whether they'll win by 1 point, whether they'll lose, so on and so forth. And obviously the main component of that was, Cousins coming off of that game with the Packers. I felt like, he's not injured. That performance and the performance he had in the third preseason game can only be tied to either nerves or his head. And that scared me, and I thought maybe that it would exponentially grow during the week because he would be really upset about the Packers game, and then he would come out and just completely melt down. So I know a lot of people are saying things like, well, they're not using him. I don't know what I was trying to find his average depth or average yards per attempt on the throws, because there were a lot of screens, a lot of short passes, so on and so forth. But I do think that this helped get his confidence back, and that he did what they needed him to do. They didn't need him to air the ball out. And maybe if those screens weren't working, or they weren't marching down the field with the run game, maybe they would have thrown in more deep passes. But they didn't have to. But he did what they asked him to do, 71% completion percentage. I'm happy with it. I think he can build on that. Am I back on the Cousins bandwagon 100%? No. It's the Raiders. It was at home. They should have won that game. They did. When it's on the road and it's in the playoffs, I still am going to be extremely worried about that game. But he did what they asked him to do. This blueprint it does work, at least against lesser teams, with the run, and have Cousins as a secondary feature as opposed to the primary one, which he was last season. So that's how I felt about it. A relief, I guess, is the best way to put it, after 10 minutes of rambling.
Yeah, I think that's certainly part of it. I was down at Mankato Brewery yesterday for a board meeting, and one of the assistant brewers came up to me and says, he always talks to me about Vikings. So funny that we're both in places of alcohol and people approach us about Vikings. But he said, "Is Cousins trash?" And I said, "Oh, come on, Al, come on." And I said, "No, he's not trash. He's not." Is he just average? I said, "I'd say he's a little bit above average," but I said he's limited. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not going to go out and do the miraculous thing to win every game. But by the same token, he can win you some games if you've got enough around him. I think we saw that last year when you saw the Rams and the Rams game and the Packers game. Those were on Cousins' shoulders. He took them, and he almost got wins in both of them. He should have had win in either one of them, perhaps both. But he had a bad game against the Packers. He had a historically bad game, and he's going to have other ones. But if the Vikings don't need to have him be perfect every time he's out there, like he needed to be in order to come back and win that Packers game this last week. If they don't need that because they have a great running game and a freaking killer defense, that's what we need. He's good enough to get you where you need to be, or you want to be, with his skills. Is he going to make mistakes? Yes. Can he improve on some of the mistakes he made? Yes. Yeah, that pass, I will not forgive him for that pass into the end zone in the Packers game. An 8-year veteran, I think, is what he is, and you just don't throw that ball with all the time you had in the situation. I still don't understand it. I think that's got to go into his quiver to remain in his brain and say, okay, you don't do this anymore, and maybe you start thinking about throwing it away or taking off. And he sure took off quite a bit on Sunday, and that was nice too. That he extended some drives. I didn't like him going down to the 1 yard line and getting flopped on by about 4 or 5 different Oakland Raiders defenders.
He's been taking a lot of chances that way. I know they wanted him to roll out more, but he's not sliding as much. I don't know if he's just frustrated, and is trying to get those extra yards or what.
He probably is.
That's disconcerting.
Yeah, like you mentioned, there's pressure on him to perform well, and that's one thing that they have told him, we'd like you to do more. So maybe he's going to, naturally, get as much as he can. But yeah, I don't like the way he's sliding right now, because if he does go down, I don't have any confidence yet in Mannion, because I don't know that much about him. I haven't seen him play enough. So I had, like I told Alan the Brewer, I said, this is our guy, and this is who he is, and what we saw against the Packers is part of him, but I don't think it's the major part of him. I said I look at the bigger, broader picture of who he is and what he's done, and he's better than that. So I won't go so far as to say he's trash.
No, and you're right. If you look at the totality of what he's done here, I don't think that's fair. I've had a lot of in-depth conversations about Cousins this last week, and with a multitude of people, and if I'm not a big silver lining people, I'm not in terms of football anyway. I'm not a big not a moral victory, but what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, if I was though going to assign another silver lining, because I know I had a sarcastic one last week from the Packers game, it's that, like you said, Joe, adding that to his quiver, the thought that, okay, I can't make that throw again, and at least realizing that early enough into the season where it might not be an ongoing issue. Beyond that, because it's better than happening in the playoffs, because now he knows, like, even if I think that guy's open, I'm not going to make that throw, because there's just no way that he would be, unless it was like a complete busted play. But, I mean, there's no room there. That's why it's so much easier to score from further out.
First down.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say I don't think he's capable of making it again. I mean, there is a bit of panic to his game at times that we see him under duress, and he's made some mistakes. So that is concerning, especially in the bigger spots he gets in. He has not, we've heard time and time again, he's not a primetime player. Yep. He's not a
good in the
playoff.
Clutch.
Yeah. So
record against 500 teams. The other silver lining I wanted to mention is that is obvious, and I'm not the first person to say this, but it occurred to me more and more, because usually this is the way, again, my brain works. Usually, if the Vikings blow a close game and then win the next game or two, I ruminate on the lost game and say, well, they should be 3-0. And I heard one of the guys, it might have been Tennessee on K-Fan, say the exact same thing. Like, I'm pissed about the Packers game because they should be 3-0, and this division's going to be tougher than we thought. Or maybe tougher in a different way because the Lions are playing well. And I was like, hey, someone is crazy like me. But for as bad as he played in that game, and the Vikings basically lost by 5 points. That's a good sign, I guess, that they despite how bad they played to start on defense, that they should have won that game, and that we feel that anger because we're angry that they didn't win a game that they lost it. The Packers clearly didn't win it, and that's, I guess, a silver lining, even though I hate that point of view. So yeah, I mean, at this point, Cousins, I think, is still the 28th ranked quarterback in terms of QBR. I don't know how that's possible because he's had 2 relatively decent games and 1 awful one. But on the season, he had 174 yards, 71% completions. I think he was something like 15 of 21, something like that. 1 touchdown, no picks. On the season, he has 502 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, and he's in his 3 games had a passer rating of 140.8.
And he's fumbled a few times.
Oh, yes. That is also very important. 52.9 and then 112. So, yeah, I mean, nothing spectacular, but outside of the 28th QBR, that's pretty awful. But, it's kind of a work in progress, I guess, with Cousins right now.
It is. Give him a chance with a new offense, a new coordinator, a new assistant head coach that are all in his ear. That he's trying to adjust. I don't want to make excuses for him because they haven't given him.
That's my job.
They haven't given him that much to do, but he's got to be a smart enough dude that it's like you can't be the reason they lose. You can't hurt the team on the way there. If you're like I did last week, I gave him a pass on at least one of those fumbles. One of them, the other one was his. I do not give him a pass on those 2 picks, but this past week, he showed some of the things that he's capable of doing. Now, yes, Joe, you said this in the agenda. Dang right, they played the Oakland Raiders. The most amazing thing is the Oakland Raiders came into that game with the 4th best rushing defense, and Dalvin Cook obliterated.
I forgot about that.
And they came in, however, with the worst pass defense in the league, yardage-wise. So, you knew the Vikings were going to throw the ball and have their way with them. But, the fact that they ran the ball on them so well is got to give some of that credit to the Vikings offensive line and Cook, but by the same token, you have to understand that their stat on their defensive rushing game, their defense against the rush is a little bit
inflated.
Thank you, because everybody's passing against them. So they're not a very good defensive team. And the Vikings, they did what they should have did. It was over. I was sitting up in the stands when I wasn't ticked off as hell as the guy in front of me jumping up right before every play ended so I couldn't see it.
You had a bad fan too, didn't you?
Yes, I did. But I was up there praying for that second garbage touchdown because of our bet. This guy knew how. I said, if they were going to end up at 7 and you were going to be 1 off, it's, oh my God, I'm never going to. I know. You were killing me on the other end. So no, you had a nice prediction last week. But
it was the whole time I kept saying, like, was I 34 or 31? I was there with like my extended family, and they're like, "What the hell is he talking about? Like, why is he so excited about this?" It was great.
I looked it up while I was in the seats. But anyway, I just have to, I'll be honest. I am spoiled like heck for my press pass that I've had the past few years, and please, John Ekstrom, give me one back next year. I want it back desperately. I enjoy being out there with 2 of my kids and my sister. We were watching the game, had a fun game, but the grower in front of me stood up for every third down, and that's fine. I can do that. I can get up then, and even though there was not a person in front of them for an entire section in front of them, they all still stood up, and that's okay. The one that bothers me is as the play is going through the play, and Dalvin Cook is weaving his way, through the defense. They stand up right in the middle of the play so you don't see how it's completed. Or the ball's in the air and they stand up right before the catch is made. And so if I'm taking notes, I can't, do that. And so it was a little frustrating. But, I'm sure people would come say, oh, we bought our ticket so we can do what we want. That's true. But,
God. So I was live tweeting at the game. My Twitter is at VT, V as in Victor, T, like Vikings territory, at VTPTSD. And there's a video that I put in a tweet that I said I don't think I've ever hated someone as much as I hate this guy. He was doing every inappropriate thing you can possibly think of. And he was standing the entire game, but he was also had his back turned to the game because he was there with like 20 of his family members. And he kept saying all these really sexually inappropriate things, top of his lungs, super drunk. And there was like children around. It was just like not good. So I'm also hoping to at some point to get in the press box. Otherwise, I mean, I like watching the game from home too, just because.
There's nothing like being there, but yeah, it can go south on you. And I got tickets to the Packers game in December, so I'm a little afraid of what's going to happen there. But I'll be ready for it. It
is a different art, if you want to call it that. And I told you this on the phone yesterday. To watching the game in person when you're used to watching it on TV and attempting to take notes, or it's just different. It looks different. Maybe there's more adrenaline involved, but it was really hard for me to retain some of the things that I had seen. So luckily I had it saved on my DVR to watch from home. It's so different.
You also have the announcers who are giving you stats and different looks. They have spotters who are and they're getting information, and that gets into your head at the same time you're seeing it. So you're understanding it when you see the replay. You know what to look for. You're right. It's a different way to watch the game, and. I should just suspend writing a game wrap after a game I'm at, but I love doing it and I love being there, so that's just the way it is.
And I love rephrasing what the color commentator says on this show. So without that, I'm lost. I will really quickly let people know though, if they go to our Periscope, which is under the Viking Territory Twitter account, not Vikings Territory on Twitter, it's Viking Territory, because I think someone owns Vikings Territory. But just by the cosmos coming through for me for once, as I was walking into the stadium, one of the customers of McDonald's Liquor, who has been wanting to take me on a tour of the stadium, super nice guy named Jim. He's a director of something down at US Bank Stadium. I think it has to do with field services or something, because you can watch the video of me basically walking from the first floor in the stadium, taking the elevator down, walking in the guts of the stadium past where I assume a lot of the players were parked by the type of cars that were there, onto the field. So I walked into the bar where the players run in and out of, where that area where people can get drunk, and then the players have to walk through to get to the locker room. So we watched that, and then we got to go on the field itself. and the guy explained to me like the composition of the field, how because they just put that new turf down. That most of the stuff on the field isn't actually paint anymore; it's actually inlaid rubber. So I don't know how in the hell they do that, but outside of like the 100 for the 100th season, because that's going to change, the NFL and all that's colored dots, not paint.
Wow.
Which I thought was really cool and intricate. But I got to be down on the field for the harmonica national anthem that started off a little rough, but then ended fantastically.
Awesome. I don't care what you say.
I know, it was really cool. I didn't even want to make a joke about it because he was 96 years old and just a great guy. They also explained that they couldn't do pyrotechnics for the Vikings coming out of the tunnel because Tennessee had their fire issue, which is such a Tennessee thing. It makes me laugh. But yeah, check out that video because it was really cool, and I got to be down on the field and watch some of the warm-ups and stuff. So that was great. You alluded to, both of us have, the run game, and there's been a lot of hyperbole going around. Maybe not, though. Maybe it's realistic, and I'm just being a prick, about Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. I mean, there's an article out today on a different network than ours saying that Mattison is the best backup running back in the NFL, which is debatable. I mean, technically everything's debatable, but Cook, I saw the stat at the stadium, and I think there were some conflicting stats on this, at least internally on our Slack, of Cook being the first Viking since Chuck Foreman to start the season with 300-yard rushing.
That is correct. It was in my post-game story, Joe.
You saw that on the big screen too, right? I wasn't just hallucinating.
No. I heard it on as I was driving home after the game. They talked about it on the post-game on K-Fan. So
okay, because somebody was saying, and I think it was Kirby, that he had heard that AP had done it.
Yes, but not to start a season. What the stat was, it was the last time it was 3 games in a row was I think 2017 or maybe it was 15 with Peterson.
Okay.
Last time it was to be done to start a season was back to Chuck Foreman.
Okay. And we've talked about him obviously a lot on the show recently and how he just looks like a different guy. Clearly he was hurt. The adage is it always takes a year to come back from an ACL. He's always been a very powerful runner that has those just amazing, almost Barry Sanders-esque cuts. And maybe that's why he tore his ACL his rookie season, because it was a non-contact injury. He was going for that cut. It just didn't work for whatever reason. But, man, is he looking great. And I don't want to get into the topic of things that don't matter. Is he the best in the league? Is he number 2?
Good.
Because that doesn't really matter. I would more just want to talk about your thoughts on him, what you see from him in terms of growth coming into his own, and how important he is to the success of this team. How far you think they can take this quote-unquote old school offense. And I will really quickly, I think Zimmer kind of is getting sick of hearing that, the old school offense, because you're running the ball and you're playing defense. He's like, points are points. It doesn't matter how you score those points. This is football. I don't want to hear about this old school mentality, but I'm sure Zimmer is extremely pleased by what's going on. So,
but he's always crabby about hearing everything that's brought up more than once.
Pretty much. That's why I'm afraid to ask him questions whenever I have an opportunity.
That's why we love him. Dalvin Cook, he really built up his upper body and his whole body in the offseason, coming, another year past the ACL, like you said. So he got stronger.
He looks like it.
He
more violent in his finishing his runs, too.
I'm going to go back to what you said last year, that you thought, seeing him come back, you thought pent up, and if there's anybody that's pent up on this team, it's him. He's had 2 seasons where he had 15 games in 2 seasons. This guy wants to prove who he is and why he was taken, when he was taken, blah, 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 blah. And he's just had to watch everybody else, run around him. He's got as much talent or more. He now has an offensive line that's opening some holes. And like Zimmer said on Sunday, he doesn't need a lot. He doesn't need a big hole to get through there and make something happen out of it. Someone mentioned a couple weeks ago his feet, and I've been watching his feet. They are a treat to watch. They are so quick. The moves he's making, his feet are phenomenal. Whether it's on the sideline or it's dancing through holes, I just love watching him. And I think he's a bit of a man possessed, and I think the line. I guess I was going to say the line is better and is helping him out, and so that coupled with him, you're seeing a better performance. They're making him a priority. I think most Vikings fans on just about every time the ball's put in his hands have two things in their mind. A, don't get hurt. B, take it to the house. You can probably do either on either play.
That's a weird roller coaster of thought.
Yes, but it is such a treat to watch him, and I think they're using him right. I'm chagrined every time I see Alexander Madison come in the game because it takes points away from me. However,
I was going to say, full disclosure, Joe drafted him with his first pick and is looking like a genius.
But that's what they want him to. Yeah, thank you. That's what they want him to do is. Or we want him to do is rest him and use him when you need him. They're using him a lot. He's getting the lion's share of the carries, but I don't think they're overusing him. And there's the drop off isn't that huge. To Madison, he's a great runner. He's going to be very good in this league, and I think a couple of years behind Dalvin Cook. A healthy Dalvin Cook and Alexander's going to be looking around and says, "God, where can I go? Where can I be a feature back?" Because I think he has that capability when you look around the league. I think that's there. He hasn't shown it all yet, but he's something else as well. So
I could see him having a good career because of the type of runner he is as well, between the tackles.
And he can catch the ball as well.
And he's gets lathered up, and the more you give him the ball, he's really can be a workhorse. That's the fear with Dalvin Cook, obviously, is the injury thing. I think, 16 carries, 15 to 20 carries. Once you get closer to 20, I get a little worried. But I think he had 16 carries, and he had like a 6.9 yard per carry average against the Raiders, which is just yikes.
And that's the key, too. You mentioned it. I mean, with anybody that gets hurt, your chances increase as the game goes along because you're tired. You don't protect yourself. It's easy to let your guard down. I'm not saying he's running to not get injured, but things happen as a person fatigues. It's almost natural. So I love the fact that they're using him right, and they want him at the end of the year. They want him to be not used so many times that he doesn't have anything left in the tank, because by the end of the season these guys' bodies are all beat up in one way or the other, especially running back, and they just don't have it. So you want to keep him fresh as best you can.
And Zimmer's made a point this week to point out what you said, which is this is not a one-man thing. It's a full team effort. And one of the topics on the agenda was discussing Kubiak's influence on this offense as far as we've seen it in 3 games. And Rick Dennison's as well as the offensive line coach, and those guys work hand in hand to get their zone blocking and the run game going. And I think one of the most surprising and integral parts of this success in the run game, and I've heard this quote a few times over the weeks since the season started from Kubiak, from Zimmer, is that Kyle Rudolph's blocking has been integral to the success of the run game. And for obvious reasons, that's a surprise because that's not what he's known for. He's actually known as a blocking liability. And in looking at Kubiak's tenure with other teams, more often than not, he would go with the less talented tight end, whoever could block best was most important. And because of that, there's a lot of examples in Denver and in Baltimore. He went with the backups because they could do everything. And I thought with the way his contract was structured, with Irv Smith Jr. coming in and being even a better blocker than they expected, and he was supposed to be pretty good, that was kind of the writing on the wall for Rudolph, and they would transition over time more towards Irv Smith Jr. And that having been said, Irv Smith Jr. had his best game as a pro against the Raiders as well. But what Rudolph is doing, I think, is awesome and is surprising, but also a testament to what Kubiak brought to this team.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I didn't know that about what you just said. That's pretty interesting about Kubiak. And I will say that the fact that Rudy's has bought into it and has no problem doing this. I mean, he's already been quoted after the game says, whatever it takes to win. I think is just another testament or reason why Zimmer wanted him back. Zimmer definitely wanted him back on this team, and they worked to get it done. And one of those reasons is that he's great off the field, but he's a leader in that clubhouse. And this is another example of that. He's, maybe now that he's got his contract, he doesn't have to worry about, all the passes that all the stats he needs.
Yeah,
he
performance.
He wants to
leverage another contract.
Exactly. He can go out there and do what he's needed and help the team win. It was. I have him on another of my team, so I was hoping he got in the end zone on that.
He was so close.
I know he was. And, he never saw the ball again. Well, I think we saw why. Irv Smith, my goodness,
Yeah.
He showed everything on Sunday that we have heard about him having the capabilities to do. I mean, he looks like a wide receiver after he catches that ball. And it's, run after the catch. He can move. He's got moves. He is, he catches the ball in stride, turns and goes. He's the size of a tight end, but my goodness. And when you compare him to how we've watched Kyle, lumber the last few years of his career, it's, I love Kyle and there's nothing against him, but boy, this Irv Smith is younger, faster, smoother, and he is, if he just keeps getting better and better, what a find, what a player he's going to be for this team. That's a little early, it does not a huge sample size. However, I was so excited about him. I went and tried to pick him up in both.
I know. I tried to get him too during the draft. Someone else snagged him, but
Kirby did.
Of course, all the talk of him lining up as a receiver this preseason. And I think his dad was or is going to be on Load the Box, the podcast by Jordan and Jack on our network and on Big Heads Media Network. Plug. And he followed us on Twitter before he started talking to those guys, and I was asking him if we could expect more of that during the season and got no response, which I think is the best way for him to do that. I doubt he was going to let me know all this stuff about the playbook. But
Joe, just another point quickly, what you said about Kubiak and the way he uses the tight ends, that tells me that's exactly why they kept David Morgan around. There was talk earlier he might not make the team, and I said, well, the Vikings really value his blocking and his catching ability. I never thought that he would get cut. But, they put him on the practice squad, kept him around despite the emergence of someone like Irv Smith and the contract of Kyle, because he's probably one of those. I mean, if he was healthy, he would be getting used a lot for his
I think so too.
In there with Irv Smith. So that just, that point you made about Kubiak it just backs that up to the nth degree for me.
Yeah, and I wrote an article about it, so people, I'll try to post it in the article for this because I got relatively in depth about the tight ends that he used, but. Point being of all of this, and I'm such a nerd that I'm actually I can feel the excitement coursing through my veins. In one of the topics on the agenda, I want to change a little bit, which I always do. Unfortunately, for you, or I apologize. I wanted to say, just watching Harrison Smith get that interception, I was thinking man, we really take him for granted. There's not a lot written about him. It's always Barr or this or that, but I really think as a whole we have this team with Irv Smith Jr. seeing what he can bring to the table. I don't want to say we're taking anything for granted because they obviously haven't explored or gotten to the peak of what they can do, but man, are they they are so stacked that going back to the first point, if Cousins can just perform as a game, whatever you want to call him, a game manager. I call him a system guy, a good to great system quarterback. Man, this team does actually have a lot of potential, and as opposed to segueing into Harrison Smith and the defense, I wanted to talk just a little bit, and then we'll finish up on the Raiders stuff, and then talk a little bit about the Bears game, even though this ties into that as well. lot of potential. The team's figuring things out. The line is playing well. I think they're going to play even better as the season goes on. But where do you put this team in terms of the division? Because I know it's kind of rubbing off on me. We're not the biggest on power rankings or comparing this or that or things that are more theoretical. But man, this division is looking pretty damn good. The Lions are undefeated, 2-0-1. They've had the harder schedule of I think anybody in the division. They beat the Eagles. They beat who was the other team?
They tied Cardinals. They should have won that game, and they beat. Did they beat Pittsburgh last week?
Oh, it's the Chargers they beat.
Yeah.
Right. So they're looking better. I mean, the Packers are undefeated. I don't think they're that great. The Bears were, people were turning on Trubisky in Chicago, and he came out last night and kind of had a statement game. I think he had 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, 200 some yards. If I have that written down correctly, which I believe I did.
Yep.
So that was a big win for them, even though the Redskins aren't obviously good. But where do you, it's hard to say, and I guess we'll find out against the Bears. But I mean, are you on the same wavelength as me in regards to being a little more? I'm getting kind of excited about the team again, and I thought I was done, which guys suck.
Are you done with this question? Okay.
Yes. Part 2. Strap in.
Well, it's funny that you should ask, because when I wrote my game story yesterday or Sunday, I said that, I put in the third opening paragraph, I said that this Vikings win is good enough for them to be in second place and they'll be tied with the second place if the Bears win on Monday night. And I had to go back and change it. Oh my God, they're in third place. They'll be tied for third place.
Yeah.
I forgot about the Lions. They are ahead of them by virtue of that tie for the time being, and so.
And I think but the Lions are going to play the Chiefs next week, so I think that'll be. That might knock them down a little bit. Fortunately.
Well, it's. I kind of thought of this at the beginning of the season. I think when we talked about it, we said the Packers going to be better. Their defense is better. Rodgers healthy. We said that. The Bears are the Bears until they fall on their face, and I thought the Lions would be better. I mean, Matt Patricia's not a terrible coach, and
they had a good draft.
So far they're proving yes they did, and so it's going to be you just can't overlook those Lions games now like you have in the past. You could always kind of look past them and think, okay, we're going to get 1 for sure, maybe 2, probably 2, and it's going to be tooth and nail in this division, and every division game is going to be tough. Now the Lions haven't had any division games yet. They haven't had to play the Bears, Packers, or the Vikings, so that will change for them a little bit because things change when you play in the division, as we all know. I do think the Vikings are better than the Packers. They should have won the game. The defense plays 1 bad quarter out of 3 games, and it really cost them. So I love the defense that they've put together. I love how they're playing. I think they got a little complacent this summer in training camp, and Zimmer let them know, so I don't want to take them for granted. I think they, it's nice to have Mike Hughes back. We saw last week. It'll be nice to get Mackenzie Alexander back when he's healthy. Eric Wilson had a great game, even though he got burned on a couple passes in coverage.
He was out there for every defensive play. I think he was the only player to.
That was nice to have him fill in for Anthony Barr like that. I mean, he had 2 sacks and he was he led the team in tackles, I believe, with 11. So
Talk about an unsung hero. I mean, he filled in last season and did well. He's obviously not Barr, but you don't notice a tremendous drop off. Like you said, he gets beat every once in a while, but it wasn't like a Nate Metters situation with Rodgers just picking on him. And granted, it's different positions, but you get what I mean.
It goes to show you that there's not a lot of room to start in that lineup. I mean, Gideon is injured, Barr's injured, so that makes the opportunity for him, and he shined with it. But, a guy like that, he might be able to play as a starter on some other team because he played on Sunday. And when you go into nickel and dime right out, out second down all the time, there's not a lot of opportunities. There's only 2 linebackers, and the Vikings have 2 good ones in Barr and Kendrick. So I'm very excited about the defense. I'm very excited about the running game. I think the Vikings line is gaining confidence every game. Especially when their running back gets them 100 yards. You hold your head up high when you go into the locker room on Mondays, rather than what the offensive line has did in the last few years around here. So, you got to get the passing game squared away a little bit better than it is, and tighten up the special teams on all counts, and they're going to be a team that's going to be reckoned with. I really feel like they're going to be in the conversation at the end of the year for both the division and the postseason. And I do think if they're healthy and they're playing like they did yesterday against tougher opponents, Sunday against tougher opponents, there's going to be they're in the conversation. They're going to go deep in the playoffs if that's the case, because they have the talent to do so. But you got to stay healthy. You got to be deep. You have to. You can't give away games like the Vikings did on up in Lambeau. They kind of gave that one away when it was well within their grasp. So
they're going to need to make that one up somehow. Maybe beating the Chiefs in Kansas City would be a nice way to offset that.
Yes, but Joe, it does. I can't even look that far ahead. This is such a huge game.
It's so big.
Ask me this question next week. How do I feel about them if they come and they come out there and play very well against this team and beat them after they found themselves last night after floundering for 2 weeks? If they do that, then all bets are off. The Vikings got to be figured to be in the conversation both in the division and the postseason.
Well, what did Mr. Chad Greenway say on our show? When we go to Chicago, in the back of our minds, we know we're going to F it up.
Oh, way to go, Negatron. Way to go.
That's why me and him bonded. We're defeatists. It's hard to overstate how important that game's going to be in Chicago. I mean, obviously these division games are incredibly important in any season. Even like you said, we as fans have a tendency to overlook the Lions games, but Zimmer hasn't had the best track record against the Lions either as the head coach of the Vikings for whatever reason.
Against the Vikings coming down there too, they play well against. They're not afraid of the Vikings coming into their house. There's no way. They got a great defense, and Trubisky's finding himself. They've got a rookie running back, Montgomery, I think his name is, who's pretty darn good, and together with Cohen, they're pretty tough. They got to figure out their receivers, although they lost last night. They lost Taylor Gabriel to a concussion, and they lost Hakeem Nicks to a knee injury. So both of them didn't finish the game. We'll have to see how that plays out.
That's huge, actually.
Yes, it is.
The Vikings, I think we're going to see a lot of Olabisi Johnson because I'm a little confused about this Chad Beebe news because they said that there's no surgery planned. I think he's waiting on a second opinion, but he tore ligaments in his ankle, so there's no way he's playing. And maybe they're not super important ligaments, which I think is kind of an oxymoron. I think all ligaments are important. It's like that's not a really important artery. Don't worry about it. It'll clot. And so he could be out for a while.
I didn't even know that. When did that happen?
I just saw it today. He got carted off the field on Sunday.
What's that?
Yeah, I did too.
Somebody must have stood up in front of me.
Or I was too busy spending literally $45 on 2 hamburgers. Yikes! This is like right before the French Revolution. People are getting mad. But yeah, BB's out, so you're gonna have BC Johnson. I really wish Josh Doxson wasn't on the IR too. That would be really helpful. I don't know what they're gonna do in that regard. Yeah. That's interesting.
I was unaware of that. I didn't know that happened. I apologize for that. But
come on, Joe. Read the agenda I didn't send you. Yeah, they only had 4 receivers on the roster. Obviously, they have. But Zylstra's gone, right? He went to. Someone said Jacksonville, maybe. I don't know.
Or the Jets.
It's always the.
You know who's
Jets.
out there, Joe? You know who's out there?
A.B. What? Wow.
No, they don't want him. They don't want him.
And apparently he's retired.
Yeah.
Man. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, this game obviously is super important. I think in regards to keys to it, Trubisky has exemplified and personified the Vikings' kryptonite for their defense, if anything, which is mobile quarterbacks, extending plays, getting out of the pocket. If they can do what the Packers did week 1 and force Trubisky to stand in the pocket and make throws, they're going to have a much easier time with the Bears. But I will say that there's not even close. Nobody comes close in the NFL to scaring me as much as Khalil Mack does.
That's a concern. That he moves all around the line, I believe. So he's going to be an interesting matchup for all kinds of people on that line. But I'm really pleased again the way Brian O'Neill has played so far this year. He didn't have hardly any camp, and he's just been solid over there. Riley Reeves had been better. Josh Klein got limped off the field. I don't even know what his status is, so he was hurting. And Dakota Dozier came in and played for him. But I did, it's against the Raiders, but he didn't seem to lose anything there. People are still kind of crabbing about Garrett Bradbury, but I think he's done well. As a rookie in first 3 games in the NFL, he's only going to get better and get stronger. I like that guy, but it'll be definitely a huge matchup for the offensive line against the Bears defense. And Klein
had a concussion.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yep, just looked it up.
And so we'll see. Maybe he gets back on the field. Who knows this week? But he's played well as well. So it's a big game. There's no two ways about it. They're going to have to play as good as they can. I was hoping they'd be still stumbling around on offense, coming in. But I don't think Washington's a very good team. So that was part of the deal. Trubisky, though, I saw him on at least one play. I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of the game, but he's still looking at his receivers all the way through there. He's not looking around. So if they can keep him in the pocket, keep him from getting out, I think they'll be fine. I read somewhere this morning, I just glanced at a headline that says the Vikings are looking for revenge for the game from last year when they got knocked out of the playoffs. So I'm hoping that's true. If that's the case, if they have that mentality, they will be focused right out of the gate. And we've seen already 2 of the 3 games when they are, how good this defense is and how good this team is.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was just going to say, this might be the best start this defense has had outside of that one quarter.
Yeah, they look good. They're healthy for the most part. They've got to continue, but they can't. They can't mail anything in. I mean, That's when Zimmer gets mad. He knows when they're ready to go or not. So they should know what's on the line this week. I don't know who the Packers play, but the Vikings should be able to. Well, the Packers have Philadelphia, I think, up at Lambeau.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
Hopefully they'll bounce back against the Packers, and the Vikings could end up in first place, but they've got to take care of the Bears. If you can beat the Bears this early in the season, they lose 2 games at home. You can kind of put them in a world of hurt that they're going to be scrambling back all season. So it's huge. It doesn't get any bigger than for this.
Definitely. And I think that when I say that the defense is having its best start under Zimmer, we kind of got accustomed to either slow starts or a lot of bending and don't breaking.
Definitely.
And I don't feel like, outside of the fact that they look that way this preseason a little bit, when they're on, and they've been on for 8 of the 9 quarters, 3 quarters
11
of hockey,
12.
11 to 12 quarters they've been on, and feverish and up.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know what their third down percentage is, but I would assume that it's really good, not as good as that historic year, 2017, I think it was. But anyway, I'm really thinking, especially with how things ended with the season last year, that they're going to come out just cooking.
One other ray of hope, Joe. I'm sorry, go ahead. One other ray of hope from last night's game. The Bears were they did win the game, but the Case Keenum and the whatchamadiggies, the Washington were scrambling. They were making a comeback, so there was a little bit of worry. And this was in a game when Case Keenum turned the ball over 5 times.
Did he?
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes, he did. So for them to be, they had a shot near the end. If they were down on the 1 yard line and or I should say in the red zone, and they didn't get a touchdown. And then they were going for I guess, it was in the red zone, and Case Keenum tried to go 4th and 1 and stretch the ball over for a first down, and somebody knocked it out of it, and they recovered it. Well, you can do that. You can do that at the end zone when if you stretch it over, it's a touchdown, the play ends. But if you're stretching the ball over the first down marker, well, too bad, buddy. So no, they had 5 turnovers. So the Bears were not world beaters last night, and they just played a team that's not very good. So,
that's something to, I guess. Yeah, I was trying to look up what Teddy's stats were against the Seahawks. 19 to 27, 70%, 177, 2 touchdowns. Wow. Good for him. I was just thinking of all the arguments about Cousins and blah, blah, blah. That game, again, it's huge. And, God, who do we play after that? I just looked it up and I forgot.
I'll tell you in a minute. It is the New York Giants in New York. Yeah.
Nice. Why do we play the Giants so often?
I know it.
One last thing. I think, where are we at with time?
We got about 3 minutes.
Okay, never mind. So let's do the score predictions. I will have the updated numbers. I believe I was off by 7 or 8 points because they scored that extra touchdown. So
now, the way I figured it out, I think you gained like 2 points.
2?
Yeah. Well, you had 31. Or no, you had 34, so you were right on there. I was 7 off with 27. And on the other end of the spectrum, you had 7, and so you were 8 off because they had 14, or you were 7 off. 7 off.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were 7 off, and I had 17, so I was 3 off. So I was a total of 10 off. You were a total of 7 off, and so 3 points. I think
3 points.
Had 3. I believe, yes.
Speaking of 3 points, how petty are Vikings fans when Daniel Carlson came out, the entire stadium booed him, then he missed that field goal and they did the prices right. Blah, 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 blah. Like, what a bunch of jerks.
They cheered loudly. Yeah.
It was like the loudest cheer of the game.
It was a nice little gift at the end for Vikings fans because, here's the guy that lost the Packers game for them. He didn't cut himself, but he did lose that game for them to a certain degree, missing 3 field goals. So fans have a long memory for if you burn us
for failure. Yeah. It's kind of our jam. I will go first with the score prediction. This game, man.
What?
Do you want to go first? Oh yeah, that's true. You go first.
For the reason I talked about earlier, I think you gotta contain Trubisky. I mean, I think they'll shut down the run. I'm not worried about the running game, and their passing game is not that great. It's the Vikings offense against their defense where it's the biggest concern. So they have to be even better than they were last week. That defense is really tough. I got the Vikings in a close one, 20-17.
Ooh. So I wonder how good their rush defense is. The Bears. I'm looking it up right now. I presume it's really good. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, they're 5th. The 5th best rushing defense, but apparently, we knocked the Raiders out pretty far. Yes. Yeah, it's a division game. It's gonna be close. God, it's going to come down to turnovers. Whoever wins the turnover battle, I think, is going to win that game. And again, Khalil Mack, he's so disruptive. I would love to see a little bit more of if Bark is playing. Some of the blitzes they had, turning him into the de facto Khalil Mack of our team and getting after Trubisky. But yeah, it's going to come down to turnovers. It's going to come down to, like you said, containing Trubisky, keeping him in the pocket. But injuries at the wide receiver position for them, that's going to be huge. And I can't imagine them moving the ball too well, considering in general, or considering. So I would honestly, I think it's going to be tough sledding. For some reason, the reason I'm hesitating is in the back of my mind, I just feel like it might actually end up being a much more high-scoring game than I thought. But it's Chicago in Chicago. I'm gonna go 14-13. Vikings take it.
Okay, I think you'll see. I'm hoping to see a few more tricks out of Kubiak's sleeve. We saw some last week with the forward pass
and the Thielen,
yeah.
the Thielen handoff.
Yep.
Was that a handoff or a pass?
I'm sorry, it was a handoff, forward handoff. I meant to say yes.
Okay.
And the play action's been great. There's just each week they let a little something that we haven't seen before, and so that's nice to see. So
last year we were all beating our heads against the wall because every time they had Cousins out of the shotgun, it was horrible, and they kept doing it. Or what? Do I have that wrong? Was it under center he was bad or the shotgun? There was one he was particularly terrible at. I think it was the shotgun.
I think you're right.
This year I had this written down in my notes. A lot of the successful plays the Vikings had in the pass offense against the Raiders and this season have been those play action bootlegs, naked bootlegs, too. They keeping Cousins moving and out of the pocket and not just standing there, because I think, despite the fact that the first and goal from the 8 interception was him doing basically a naked bootleg, but I don't know if that was planned or if the pocket collapsed and he just ran. I can't remember.
No, I believe it was play action. He sprinted out.
Okay.
And they were trying to catch him off guard. Something they weren't ready for, but he just he panicked. That's all there is to it.
And I think that was kind of my point too, is that like when he's standing still, he kind of gets antsy. His pocket presence isn't the best. He doesn't sense things very well. So when you have him out and running, I think it eliminates the ability for him to panic a little bit.
Right. He traditionally isn't. He traditionally doesn't play well on the run, though. That always has been the thing on him. He's done more of it while he's been here, and I thought he's been fine generally since he's been here, getting out of the pocket. But we can't include that play on.
Yeah, and I wonder. I hope it'll be really interesting to see what Cook can do. I could see him having like 88 yards for some reason. I'm having all these like very vivid visions from the future. Probably because I watched Interstellar last night, and that movie's all about him sending himself messages from the future. Spoiler alert! Whoops. So yeah, this has been the Tuesday edition of Morning Joe's. We do try to record on Tuesdays, and I think that's probably what we'll be doing moving forward. And I'm assuming that because I haven't really talked to Joe about it. But with us joining the Big Heads Media Network, I don't want to overwhelm people with Wednesday, because About the Labor's on Wednesday and Load the Box is also on Wednesday. About the Labor does a post-game show. I do my show, The Smoke Break, on game day. I am working on doing that more during the week, but I really want to get a better camera because my webcam it says vote for Jimmy Carter on it for some reason. So yeah, thanks for everyone for tuning in. Make sure you check out ticketclub.com or the Ticket Club on Twitter. If you go to Purple PTSD, there's a banner in every article. Click on that, and it'll get you to the discount page where you enter the discount code SKOLPTSD, and you get a free $50 value year membership with them. We're also working with Total Sports Entertainment to provide really cool merchandise that's autographed and exclusive and promoting events. So check that out, and check out all the other shows on the Big Heads Media Network as well. But we will be back next week, hopefully with some good news. This has been Morning Joe's for Tuesday, the 24th of September. Catch you guys next time. Skol!